Yes, you did read that title correctly. I have never seen a single episode of Spongebob Squarepants. And frankly, I never watched Nickelodeon to begin with, unless it happened to be on at the orthodontist while I needed to get my braces tightened when I was in middle school. And I'm not remembering any of that. I was a Disney kid who watched Handy Manny until middle school because of the deep, rich characterization, obviously. So I figured there was no time like the present to work my way through all of the Nickelodeon shows that I missed as a child. And what better place to start than Nickelodeon's quaint little money printer, Spongebob Squarepants. Today I'll be exploring the good, the bad, and the Gary of SpongeBob's first season, so if you'd like me to explore the other seasons and maybe some of the movies as well, I don't know, make sure to hit that subscribe button, and while you're down there, hit that like button like you're Patrick dreaming of spiders. Let's get into it. So I'm someone that's never worked in the fast food industry, right? I find it hard to imagine that anyone like SpongeBob actually exists. I've never seen such a hard-working man in my entire life. He wants to flip those patties for every single fish friend and foe in Bikini Bottom. And that is our setting to where our story begins. And for the show that I was expecting SpongeBob SquarePants to be, this slice of life, not really plot-oriented show, I really wasn't expecting an origin story for the Sponge, especially at his well-renowned position at the Krusty Krab burger establishment. For real, what is in a Krabby Patty? I need to know. Is it manatees? If there are any manatees that are harmed in this, I'm going to have some words with the Sponge Man himself, because that's not cool. For anyone that missed it, that was a sea cow joke. Sea cow, manatee. So we find SpongeBob waking up, very eager and ready to apply to his dream job at the Krusty Krab, which, as far as I can tell, is the only establishment for about many nautical miles. However, for that dreaded entrance interview, SpongeBob is tasked with finding the legendary it's too early for this, hydrodynamic spatula, which is supposed to not exist. And he's tasked to do this by none other than the owner of the Krusty Krab, Mr. Krabs, and the cashier, Squidward, who also happens to be SpongeBob's neighbor. However, SpongeBob does find a way to get this spatula, and thus begins our journey. Throughout the first season of SpongeBob, we're introduced to many iconic characters that I've obviously seen in passing. I've strolled down the Funko Pop aisle once or twice in my life. Okay, I'm not completely lost. But as we journey through the first season of SpongeBob SquarePants, we're introduced to some of the side characters, such as the Aquanaut Squirrel Sandy, the accidental psychological manipulator, and honestly, little freak, Patrick Star, and also SpongeBob's microscopic monocular bestie, Plankton. But now that we have the introduction out of the way, let's dive into what I thought about all 20 episodes of Season 1 of SpongeBob SquarePants. Now, I know none of this video is really going to be a hot take if you grew up with SpongeBob, but bear with me. This is obviously my first time watching them, so I am going to gush about literally anything that I picked up while I was watching it. So I know I just mentioned that SpongeBob Season 1 has 20 episodes, but really, each episode has about 2 to 3 segments each, making up the entire 20-minute episode. So in reality, there was actually 41 episodes that I had to watch for this. And honestly, I can see why this show took off the way that it did just with this first season. It really didn't pump the brakes at all when providing constant giggles. And I love a good giggle. Something that really stood out to me is how consistently great each of the character designs are. And it's not just the main characters too. There's such a variety in not only the background fish character design, there's even a squid guy that pops up once in a while, but each shot also has these really well-drawn, fun backgrounds that have all these little flowers in them. They just always brought a smile to my face. There's always something to look at when you're watching this. And there's also the live action elements of the show. There was a lot more of this than I thought there would be, but it never felt out of place or like I was watching a completely different show, like in some other shows, especially in adult animation. On that note of live action elements, one of the episodes that it really stood out in is an episode called Suds, where SpongeBob gets the suds, which is basically the flu for sponges. And the way that the doctor remedies this is by a live action hand literally sliding into frame, grabbing SpongeBob, and taking him away to the real world to scrub out all those suds on some dishes, some hands, some man's back. And like it's obviously this very simple scene, but it's just really charming in a very simple way, which is the way I would describe this entire show. Even the background characters felt like they had this life of their own, like they were always doing something in the background that was consistently in character, whether it be the guy that just screams "my leg" at every single occasion, or this guy. I mean, come on, look at this guy. I love that guy. Now, when it comes to episodes, there were basically two categories that I was able to find. The weekday episodes, where Squidward wants to shake the living daylights out of SpongeBob at work, or the weekend episodes, where Squidward wants to shake the living daylights out of SpongeBob in their home. Now, just as a general trend, I tended to like the episodes that didn't really revolve around the Krusty Krab all that much. Don't get me wrong, there were a lot of great moments in a lot of the Krusty Krab episodes, and obviously a lot of them are iconic to this day. But the episodes that really stood out to me were the ones where SpongeBob and Patrick were just hanging out, blowing bubbles, or catching jellyfish. With these episodes, Bikini Bottom really felt like this city. It gave us iconic locations like the Glove World Amusement Park, Goo Lagoon, or Rock Bottom, which is a neighboring city that we're already expanding to in season 1. And it happened to be one of the best episodes too. Now, just because I didn't like the Krusty Krab episodes as much, that doesn't mean they weren't important to the lore. That's right, I am determined to find out the inner workings of the Spongebob Squarepants lore. And that all starts with the Krusty Krab itself. This is the pinnacle of restaurant experiences, okay? There is nothing like a Krabby Patty. Right off the bat, we learned that without SpongeBob, the Krusty Krab is literally doomed. SpongeBob is holding the weight of the Krusty Krab literally on his back, not only as the best employee there, but kind of the only employee there. The only other person here is Mr. Krabs himself, obviously, and Squidward, who kind of just stands at the cash register most of the time and lets SpongeBob do all the work. But still, the Krusty Krab would literally be more underwater than it already is without SpongeBob. Now, as we've discussed before, the Krabby Patty must be like literally the best food on the planet, because the only rival restaurant in the entire area is the Chum Bucket, which has yet to have a customer step through its doors on screen at least. And Plankton, the owner of the Chum Bucket, is so determined to get that formula that on multiple occasions, I think about 3 this season, he tries to hatch a plan to steal that Krabby Patty recipe that he so desperately needs. Number 3. We rarely see anything else get served besides burgers. Again, presumably burgers. However, we do see that they make other foods such as pizzas, but I really can't tell if that's just a one-time thing that Mr. Krabs just decided to do one day, or if it is a consistent menu item. And for number 4, we know that they pride themselves on quality. Well, at least SpongeBob prides himself on quality. I don't know about everyone else, but SpongeBob loves quality. And for number 5, despite the fast food label that they give themselves, obviously serving burgers, that's traditionally a fast food item, unless you're, going to Red Robin for some steak fries or whatever. But since they are one of 2 restaurants in the entirety of Bikini Bottom, they are also known for their fine dining establishment, as they provided dinner and a show in the episode Talent Show, where all of the upper class citizens of Bikini Bottom attended and ate burger. And obviously they got to experience what a masterpiece the Krabby Patty is. Number 6. Based on the Employee of the Month episode, we know that the show takes place over the span of at least a couple years. Obviously, we see that in the pilot episode, SpongeBob gets his job at the Krusty Krab, and by the time we get to this episode, he's worked there for at least 30 odd months, based on the amount of Employee of the Month photos he has on his wall. Number 7. Despite SpongeBob's multiple crimes, such as breaking and entering, petty theft, destruction of property, public nudity, and of course, countless murder, He is still luckily employed at the Krusty Krab, so, he's, slipping some bills under the table, which, again, hope they explore in future seasons. We'll see. Fingers crossed. And finally, the last lesson we learn is to never trust anyone at this establishment for their financial advice. And those are all the things I took away from all of those weekday episodes. But like I said earlier on in the video, the real standouts for me were the weekend episodes. These were the episodes where SpongeBob was just hanging out with his buddies, such as Patrick, Sandy, and even his little snail cat guy, Gary, who is honestly the best character so far. I wish he showed up more. But one thing that surprised me as a newcomer to the show is the dynamic between Sandy and SpongeBob. From an outside view looking in, like looking at the promotional stuff, I never expected them to be as close of friends as they were in the first season at least. And it was a really welcome surprise. They had a lot of really good episodes, such as the episode where SpongeBob has to comfort her for missing her home down in Texas. Or in the Valentine's Day episode where SpongeBob is trying to surprise Patrick and Sandy's super supportive of his plan and even, puts the plan in action to float over the chocolate balloon that has this giant picture of Patrick on it. I just thought it was super charming. Another aspect of SpongeBob's friendships was obviously with his best friend and neighbor Patrick. In this season, Patrick is sort of this wise sage figure to SpongeBob that SpongeBob goes to for advice, such as how to pass his driver's license exam or how to treat his sickness when he gets sick in that episode that I mentioned previously. And funnily enough, it doesn't matter how wrong Patrick is, SpongeBob is just always ready to accept his advice, and that's just really good friendship, okay? Now that we've gone over all the things that I noticed about the season, let's get into my favorite episode and my least favorite episode. Like I said, there were really a lot of episodes that I enjoyed, probably the majority of it, but there were a couple standouts that really stood out to me as being a little rusty or very indicative that this is still a season 1. As for my favorite episode, that ended up being the episode Pizza Delivery. I just really enjoy the running gag of the episode. In the episode, they're trying to deliver the Krusty Krab pizza that I mentioned before, and no matter what, Squidward does not believe anything that SpongeBob says, even though he's 100% right the entire episode, which is ironic because if I were Squidward in that position, I really wouldn't believe SpongeBob in any way. The episode really frames it as like SpongeBob is always right, but all of the episodes before it and after it really just debunk that completely. It's just a really solid episode that shows off the dynamic of Squidward and SpongeBob perfectly, and I don't think any of the other episodes came close to it. As for my least favorite episode, that goes to the episode titled Squeaky Shoes. This episode, Mr. Krabs buys some squeaky shoes for his daughter, who I haven't really talked about, but his daughter is a character and she is a giant whale named Pearl. We've seen that Mr. Krabs is a big old cheapskate, so he bought these shoes for about $2. Obviously his daughter absolutely hates them, so what do? You give them to SpongeBob, and SpongeBob absolutely loves these shoes. But as the title suggests, these boots be squeaky. And the whole episode's running gag is just that the boots are squeaky, and that's the whole 11 minutes. So it didn't really do that much for me. However, like I said, that is such a low point in a overall great season, and can't believe I missed out on this as a kid. Now this whole time I know you've been thinking, but Cam, what about the memes? And don't worry, this season had memes. I was honestly really surprised at the amount of references that people still make to this season alone to this day. I truly did not know that every single meme that I saw on iFunny in 2015 was from season 1. I can see why it's so dearly beloved. The whole season really had me pointing my finger at the screen the whole time, being like, "That's him. That's the guy from the meme." And it was SpongeBob the whole time. Maybe Squidward a couple times, Patrick once or twice. It was mostly SpongeBob. But I am a little worried that in later seasons there's going to be a lot less memes. So, it's been a good run. But it does seem like season 1 seemed to soak up all of the memes that have been, working their way around the internet. And if I can't see a funny SpongeBob meme in my funny SpongeBob show, then I don't want to watch it. Guys, that about wraps this very in-depth analysis of the season 1 of SpongeBob SquarePants. If you guys did enjoy it, hit that subscribe button. I'm obviously a very new creator, so anything helps. If you did enjoy the episode, feel free to tell me in the comments what your favorite episode is. It probably isn't pizza delivery, so if it is something different, drop a comment down there. Let me know. And if you're watching this part, thank you so much for watching. I feel like I am now a Nickelodeon kid officially, so, continue this indoctrination ceremony with me for however long it takes. So thank you for coming along this seafaring adventure, and we'll see you on the next one. Bye-bye.